I ate a real spicy chip, so I might do a little coughing through this. But pour me some juice in. Hand me that. Hand me that. Ooh, let me pour myself some drink. Let's make this easy on my life. I just want to chill myself with the hot chip, which that technically was really out hot. But I somehow... Oh, anyway. It's a library trip. I went to the library today. Of course, they turned around and messed up and didn't have the book that I really wanted. So I looked in the aisles. I looked through the aisles and I paid attention to what I was looking at. Looking at the books. And I was like, do I want to go African American? I was like, yeah. And I see so many books. But now what do I want to give y'all? I got a lot of books. Just, I saw the good books, the manuals. I think I'm going to start with a classic old...
Can I buy this game?
No. No. I already said no.
It's too cheap?
No. You ain't played... You don't play half the games that's on there already. It's by Richard Wright. It's called Black Boy. His strength still be hunger bidden, and destruction should be ready at his side. Job. One minute morning in the long ago 4-year-old days of my life. What is you doing? Because I don't look like no homework. You think because I'm on live, because I'm making a video, you finna play games? I found myself standing before a fireplace, warming my hands over a mound of glowing coals, listening to the wind whistle past the house outside. All morning, my mother had been scolding me, telling me to keep still, warning me that I must make no noise. And I was angry, fretful, and impatient. In the next room, Granny lay ill and under the day and night care of a doctor, and I knew that I would be punished if I did not obey. I crossed restlessly to the window and pushed back to the long, fluffy white curtains, which I had been forbidden to touch, and looked yearningly out into the empty street. I was dreaming of running and playing and shouting, but the vivid image of Granny's old, white, wrinkled, grim face, framed by a halo of tumbling black hair, lying up on a huge feather pillow, made me afraid. Y'all, wait. Yeah. I didn't feel like to be with ice cream people today. The house was quiet. Behind me, my brother, a year younger than I, was playing placidly up on the floor with a toy. A bird wheeled past the window, and I greeted it with a glass shout. "You better hush," my brother said. "You shut up," I said. My mother stepped briskly into the room and closed the door behind her. She came to me and shook her finger in my face. "You stop that yelling. You hear?" she whispered. "You know Granny's sick, and you better keep quiet." I hung my head and sulked. She left and I ached with boredom. "I told you," my brother gloated. "You shut up," I told him again. I wandered listlessly about the room, trying to think of something to do, dreading the return of my mother, resentful of being neglected. The room held nothing of interest except the figure, and finally I stood before the shimmering embers, fascinated by the quivering coals. An idea of a new kind of game grew and took root in my mind. Why not throw something in the fire and watch it burn? I looked about. There was only my picture book, and my mother would beat me if I burned that. Then what? I hunted around till I saw the broom leaning in a closet. That's it. Who will bother about a few straws if I burned them? I pulled out the broom and tore out a batch of straws and tossed them into the fire and watched them smoke, turn black, blaze, and finally become white wisps of ghosts that vanished. Burning straws was a teasing kind of fun, and I took more of them from a broom and cast them into the fire. My brother came to my side, his eyes drawn by the blazing straws. "Don't do that," he said. "How come?" I asked. "You're burning the whole broom," he said. "You hush," I said. "I'll tell," he said. "And I'll hit you," I said. My idea was growing, blooming. Now I was wondering just how the long, fluffy white curtains would look if I lit a bunch of straws and hid it on them. Would I try it? Sure. I don't think you're going to be able to hold them long enough to get to the curtain. I poured several straws from the broom and held them to the fire until they blazed. Oh. I rushed to the window and brought the flame in touch with the hems of the curtain. My brother shook his head. "Nah," he said. "He spoke too late." What you mean he spoke too late? Like, oh, bro, if you had warned me just a little. Warn it, bro. Warn me. Red circles were eating it into the white cloth. Then a fire flame shot out. Started, I backed away. The fire soared to the ceiling and I trembled with fright. Soon a sheet of yellow lit the room. I was terrified. I wanted to scream, but was afraid. I looked around for my brother. He was gone. One half of the room was now ablaze. Smoke was choking me, and the fire was licking in my face, making me gasp. I made for the kitchen. Smoke was surging. Smoke was surging there too. Soon my mother would smell the smoke and see the fire and come and beat me. I had done something wrong. Something which I could not hide or deny. Yes, I would run away and never come back. I ran out of the kitchen and into the back yard. Where did I go? Where could I go? Yes, under the house. Nobody would find me there. Yes, let's go under that burning house that's on fire. I crawled in the house and crept into a dark hollow of a brick chimney and borrowed myself a tight knot. My mother must not find me and whip me for what I've done. Anyway, it was all an accident. I had not really intended to set the house afire. I had just wanted to see how the curtains would look when they burned, and neither did it occur to me that I was hiding under the burning house. Presently, footsteps pounded on the floor above me. Then I heard screams. Later, the gongs of fire wagons and the chopping hooves of horses came from the direction of the street. Yes, there was really a fire like the one I had seen one day burn a house down to the ground, leaving only a chimney standing black. I was stiff with terror. The thunder sound above me shook the chimney to which I clung. The screams came louder. I saw the image of my grandmother laying helplessly upon her bed, and there was yellow flames in her black hair. Was my mother afire? Would my brother burn? Perhaps everyone in the house would burn. Why had I not thought of those things before I fired the curtain? I yearned to become invincible, to stop living. The commotion above me increased, and I began to cry. It seemed that I had been hiding for ages, and when the stomping and screaming died down, I felt lonely, cast further out of life. Voices. Hold on. This is some shit my kid will do. Whew. Voices sounded nearby, and I shivered. "Richard!" My mother was calling frantically. I saw her legs and the hem of her dress moving swiftly about the backyard. Her words were full of an agony whose intensity told me that my punishment would be measured by his death. Then I saw her taunt face piercing under the edge of the house. She had found me. I held my breath and waited to hear her command me to come to her. Her face went away. No, she had not seen me huddled in the dark nook of the chimney. I tucked my head into my arms and my teeth chattered. "Richard!" The distress I sensed in her voice was as sharp and painful as the lash of a whip on my flesh. "Richard! The house is on fire! Oh, find my child!" Yes, the house was afire, but I was determined not to leave my place of safety. Finally, I saw another face peering on the edge of the house. It was my father's. His eyes must have become accustomed to the shadows, for he was now pointing at me. "There he is!" "No!" I screamed. "Come here, boy, now! The house is on fire! Leave me alone!" He crawled to me, caught a hold of one of my legs. I hugged the edge of the brick chimney with all my strength. My father yanked my head, and I clawed at the chimney harder. "Come out of there, you little fool! Turn me loose!" I could not withstand the tugging in my leg, and my fingers relaxed. It was over. I would be beaten. I did not care anymore. I knew what was coming. He dragged me to the backyard, and the instant his hand left me, I jumped to my feet and broke into a wild run, trying to elude the people who surrounded me, headed for the street. I was caught before I had gone 10 paces. From that moment on, things became tangled for me. Out of the weeping and the shouting and the wild talk, I learned that no one had died in the fight. My brother, it seemed, had finally overcome enough of his panic to warn my mother, but not before more than half the house had been destroyed. Using the mattress as a stretcher, Grandpa and an uncle had lifted Granny from her bed and had rushed her to the safety of a neighbor's house. My long absence and silence had made everyone think for a while that I had perished in the blaze. "You almost scared us to death," my mother muttered as she stripped the leaves from a tree limbs to prepare for my back. I was there so hard and long that I lost consciousness. I was beaten out of my senses, and later I found myself in the bed, screaming, determined to run away, tussling with my mother and father, who were trying to keep me still. I was lost in a fog of fear. A doctor was called. I was afterwards told, and he ordered that I be kept to bed, that I be kept quiet, that my very life depended on it. My body seemed on fire, and I could not sleep. Packs of ice were put on my forehead to keep down the fever. Whenever I tried to sleep, I would see huge wobbly white bags, like the full udders of cows, suspended from the ceiling above me. Later, as I grew worse, I could see the bags in the daytime with my eyes open, and I was gripped by the fear that they were going to fall and drench me with some horrible liquid. Day and night, I begged my mother and father to take the bags away, pointing to them, shaking with terror because no one saw them but me. Exhaustion would make me drift off towards sleep, and then I would scream until I was wide awake again. I was afraid to sleep. Time finally bore me away from the dangerous bags, and I got well. But for a long time, I was chastised whenever I remembered that my mother had come close to killing me. Each of it spoke with a critical tongue, and the moments of living slowly revealed their coded meanings. There was a wonder I felt when I first saw a brace of mountain light, spotted black and white horses clomping down the dusty road through clouds of powdered clay. There was a delight I caught in seeing long straight rows of red and green vegetables stretching away in the sun to the bright horizon. There was a faint, cool kiss of sensibility when dew came on to my cheeks and shins as I ran down the red green gardens paths in the early mornings. There was a vague sense of the infinite as I looked down upon the yellow, dreaming waters of the Mississippi River with the verdant bluffs of Nacass. There were the echoes of Noscus. Hold on, y'all. Oh my goodness, please don't be that bit. No. Oh, no. I gotta find a break point. I'm gonna have to find a break point. There was a teasing and an impossible desire to imitate the pretty cries of sparrows wallowing and flossing in the red dust of country roads. There was a yearning for identification loosened in me by the sight of a solitary ant carrying a burden upon a mysterious journey. There was a disdain that filled me as I tortured a delicate blue-pink crawfish that hurtled fearfully in the mud still of a rusty tin can. There was an aching glory in masses of clouds burning gold and purple from an invisible sun. There was a liquid lawn that I saw in the blood-red glare of the sun's afterglow mirrored in the squared panes of white-washed frame houses. There was a lime glow I felt when I heard green leaves rustling with a rain-like sound. There was an incomprehensible secret embezzled in the whitish toadstool hiding in the dark shade of a rotten log. There was an experience of feeling death without dying that came from watching the chicken leap about blindly after his neck had been snapped by a quick twist of my father's wrist. There was a great joke that I felt God had played on cats and dogs by making them lap their milk and water with their tongues. There was the thirst I had when I watched clear, sweet juice trickle from sugar's crane being crushed. There was a hot panic that welled up in my throat and swept through my blood when I first saw the lazy limp coils of a blue-skinned snake sleeping in the sun. There was a speechless astonishment of seeing a hog stabbed through the heart, dripped into boiling water, scraped, split open, gutted, and strung up, gapping and bloody. There was a love I had for the mute regality of tall moss-clad oaks. There was a hint of cosmic cruelty that I felt when I saw the cured timbers of a wooden shack that I had been wrapped in the summer wind sun. There was the saliva that formed in my mouth whenever I smelt clay dust potted with fresh rain. There was a cloudy notion of hunger when I breathed the odor of new-cut bleeding grass. And there was a quiet terror that suffocated my senses when vast hazes of gold-washed earth wan from star-heavy skies on silent nights. One day, my mother told me that we were going to Memphis on a boat, the Cat Adams, and my earnest therefore made the days seem endless. Each night I went to bed hoping that the next morning would be the day of departure. How big is the boat? I asked my mother. As big as a mountain, she said. Has it got a whistle? Yes. Does the whistle blow? Yes. When? When the captain wants it to blow. Why do they call it the Cat Adams? Because that's the boat's name. What color is the boat? White. How long will we be on the boat? All day and all night? Will we sleep on the boat? Yes, when we get sleepy, we'll sleep. Now hush. For days I had dreamed about a huge white boat floating on a vast body of water. But when my mother took me down to the levee on the day of leaving, I saw a tiny, dirty boat that was not at all like the boat I had imagined. I was disappointed, and when time came to go on board, I cried, and my mother thought I did not want to go with her to Memphis, and I could not tell her where the trouble was. Solitude came when I wandered about the boat and glazed at Negroes throwing dice, drinking whiskey, playing cards, lolling on boxes, eating, talking, and singing. My father took me down into the engine room and 1,000 machines and thrilled me for hours. In Memphis, we lived in a one-story brick tenement. The stone buildings and the concrete pavements looked bleak and hostile to me. The absence of green, growing things made the city seem dead. Living space for the four of us, my mother, my brother, my father, and me, was the kitchen and the bedroom. In the front and rear were paved areas in which my brother and I could play. But for days I was afraid to go into the strange city streets alone. It was in this tenement that the personality of my father first came fully into the orbit of my concern. He worked at night porter in the Belly Street drugstore, and he became important and forbidding to me only when I learned that I could not make noise when he was asleep in the daytime. He was a lawgiver in our family, and I never laughed in his presence. I used to lurk timidly in the kitchen doorway and watch his huge body sitting slumped at the table. I stared at him with awe as he gulped his beer from a tin bucket, as he ate long and heavy, sighed, belched, closed his eyes to nod on a stuffed belly. He was quite fat, and his bloated stomach always lapped over his belt. He was always a stranger to me, always somehow alien and remote. One morning, my brother, and I, while playing in the rear of our flat, found a stray kitten that sat up a loud, persimmon meowing. We fed it some scraps of food and gave it some water, but it still meowed. My father, clad in his underwear, stumbled sleepily to the back door and demanded that we keep quiet. We told him that it was the kitten that was making the noise, and he ordered us to drive it away. We tried to make the kitten leave, but it would not budge. My father took a hand. Scat! He shouted. The scrawny kitten lingered, brushing itself against our legs and meowing plaintively. Kill that damn thing, my father exploded. Do anything but get it away from here. He went inside grumbling. I resented his shouting, and it irked me that I could never make him feel my resentment. How could I hit him back? How could I hit back at him? Oh, yes. He had said to kill the kitten, and I would kill it. I knew that he had not really meant for me to kill the kitten, but my deep hate of him urged me toward a literal acceptance of his word. He said for us to kill the kitten, I told my brother. He didn't mean it, my brother said. He did, and I'm going to kill him. Then he would howl, my brother said. He can't howl if he's dead, I said. He didn't really say kill him, my brother protested. He did, I said, and you heard him. My brother ran away in fright. I found a piece of rope, made a noose, slipped it about the kitten's neck, pulled it over a nail, then jerked the animal clear off the ground. It grasped, slobbered, spun, doubled, clawed the air frantically. Finally, his mouth gasped and his pink-white tongue shot out stiffly. I tied the rope to the nail and went to find my brother. He was crouching behind a corner of the building. I killed him, I whispered. You did bad, my brother said. Now Papa can sleep, I said, deeply satisfied. He didn't mean for you to kill him, my brother said. Then why did he tell me to do it, I demanded. My brother could not answer. He stared fearfully at the dangling kitten. That kitten's going to get you, he warned me. The kitty can't even breathe now, I said. I'm going to tell, my brother said, running into the house. I waited, resolving to defend myself from my father's rash words, anticipating my enjoyment and repeating them to him, even though I knew that he had spoken them in anger. My mother hurried toward me, drying her hands upon her apron. She stopped and paled when she saw the kitten suspended from the rope. "What in God's name have you done?" she asked. "The kitten was making noise, and Papa said to kill it," I explained. "You little fool," she said. "Your father's gonna beat you for this." "But he told me to kill it," I said. "You shut your mouth." She grabbed my hand and dragged me to my father's bedside and told him what I've done. "You know better than that," my father stormed. "You told me to kill him," I said. "I told you to drive him away," he said. "You told me to kill him," I countered positively. "You get out of my eyes before I smack you down," my father bellowed in disgust, then turned over in bed. I had my first triumph of my father. I had made him believe that I had taken his words literally. He could not punish me now without risking his authority. I was happy because I had at last found a way to throw my criticism of him into his face. I had made him feel that if he whipped me for killing the kitten, I would never give serious weight to his words again. I had made him know that I had felt that he was cruel, and I had done it without his punishing me. But my mother, being more imaginative, retaliated and assaulted upon my sensibilities that crushed me with the moral horror involving in taking a life. All that afternoon she directed me toward calculated words that spawned in my head a horde of invisible demons bent upon exacting revenge for what I had done. As evening drew near, anxiety filled me, and I was afraid to go into the empty room alone. "You owe a debt that can never be paid," my mother said. "I'm sorry," I mumbled. "Being sorry can't make the kitten live again," she said. Then just before I was to go to bed, she uttered a paralyzing injunction. She ordered me to go out into the dark, dig a grave, and bury the kitten. "No!" I screamed, feeling that if I went out the door, some evil spirit would whisk me away. "Get out there and bury that poor kitten," she ordered. "I'm scared." "And wasn't that kitten scared when you put that rope around its neck?" she asked. "But it's only a kitten," I explained. "But it was alive," she said. "Can you make it live again?" "But Papa says to kill it," I said, trying to shift the moral blame upon my father. My mother whacked me across my mouth with the flat palm of her hand. "You stop that lying. You know what he meant." "I didn't," I bawled. She shoved the tiny spade into my hands. "Go out there and dig a hole and bury the kitten." I stumbled into the black night, sobbing, my legs wobbly from fear. Though I knew that I had killed the kitten, my mother's words had made it live again in my mind. What would that kitten do to me when I touched it? Would it cloud my eyes? As I groped toward the dead kitten, my mother lingered behind me, unseen in the dark, her embellished voice egging me on. "Mama, come and stand by me," I begged. "You didn't stand by that kitten, so why should I stand by you?" she asked tauntingly from the menacing darkness. "I can't touch it," I whispered, feeling the kitten was staring at me with reapproaching eyes. "Untie it," she ordered. Shuddering, I fumbled at the rope, and the kitten dropped to the pavement with a thud that echoed in my mind for many days and nights. Then, obeying my mother's falling voice, I hunted for a spot on earth, dug a shallow hole, and buried the stiff kitten. As I handled its cold body with my skin prickled, when I had completed the burial, I sighed and stared back at the flat. But my mother caught hold of my hand and led me again to the kitten's grave. "Shut your eyes and repeat after me," she said. I closed my eyes tightly, my hand clinging to hers. "Dear God, our Father, forgive me, for I know not what I was doing." "Dear God, our Father, forgive me, for I knew not what I was doing," I repeated. "And spare my poor soul, even though I did not spare the life of the kitten." "And spare my poor soul, my life, even though I did not spare the life of the kitten," I repeated. "And while I sleep tonight, do not snatch the breath from me." I opened my mouth, but no words came out. My mind was frozen with horror. I pictured myself gasping for breath and dying in my sleep. I broke away from my mother and ran into the night, crying, shaking with dread. "No!" I sobbed. My mother called to me many times, but I would not go to her. "Well, I suppose you learned your lesson," she said at last. Contrary, I went to bed hoping that I would never see another kitten. I was about to say that. I don't even want to see no more kittens. They're giving me an opening. They gave me an opening. Should I take it? Should I take it? I should take it. Ooh, I'm taking the opening. I'm taking the opening. I'm taking the opening. I'm taking the opening. I'm going to take that opening. I'm going to take this opening. No, screw it. Don't take the opening, Squeeze. Hunger stole upon me so slowly that at first I was not aware of what hunger really meant. Hunger had always been more or less at my elbow when I played, but now I began to wake up at night to find hunger standing at my bedside, staring at me gluttily. The hunger I had known before this had been no grim, hostile stranger. It had been a normal hunger that had made me beg constantly for bread. And when I ate across the two, I was satisfied. But this new hunger baffled me, scared me, made me angry and insistent. Whenever I begged for food now, my mother would pour me a cup of tea, which would still the clamor in my stomach for a moment or two. But a little later, I would feel hunger nudging my ribs, twisting my empty guts until they ached. I would grow dizzy in my vision with them. I became less active in my play, and for the first time in my life, I had to pause and think of what was happening to me. Yeah, I mean, if all you're drinking is tea, then you is gonna be hungry. Jump up and catch a conkery, she said, trying to make me laugh and forget. What's a conkery? It's what little boys eat when they get hungry, she said. What does it taste like? I don't know. Then why did you tell me to catch one? Because you said that you were hungry, she said, smiling. I sensed that she was teasing me, and it made me angry. But I'm hungry. I want to eat. You have to wait. But I want to eat now, but there's nothing to eat, she told me. Why? Because there's none, she explained. But I want to eat, I said, beginning to cry. You just have to wait, she said again. But why? For God to send some food. When is he going to send it? I don't know. But I'm hungry. She was ironing and she paused and looked at me with tears in her eyes. Where's your father? She asked. I stared in bewilderment. Yes, it was true that my father had not come home to sleep for many days now, and I could make as much noise as I wanted. Though I had not known why he was absent, I had been glad that he was not there to shout his restrictions at me. But it had never occurred to me that his absence would mean that there would be no food. I don't know, I said. Who brings food into the house? My mother asked. Papa, I said. He always brought food. Well, your father isn't here now, she said. Where is he? I don't know, she said. But I'm hungry, I whimpered, stomping my foot. You'll have to wait until I get a job and buy food, she said. As the days slid past, the image of my father became associated with my pains of hunger. And whenever I felt hunger, I thought of him with a deep biological bitterness. My mother finally went to work as a cook and left me and my brother alone in the flat each day with a loaf of bread and a pot of tea. When she returned in the evening, she was tired and dispirited and would cry a lot. Sometimes when she was in despair, she would call us to her and talk to us for hours, telling us that we now had no father, that our lives were different from those of other children, that we must learn as soon as possible to take care of ourselves, to dress ourselves, to prepare our own food, that we must take upon ourselves the responsibilities of the flat while she worked. Half frightened, we would promise solemnly. We did not understand what had happened between our father and our mother, and the most of these long talks did to us was make us feel a vague dread. Whenever we asked why father had left, she would tell us that we were way too young to know. Father was out here in these streets playing games. All right, we'll be right back.